All right, everybody. It's always great when you get to the end of a mission, the end of a journey, the end of a trip, the end of something you've been on. And we're going to call what we've been through together at this point all of those things. I want to thank everybody for listening, rejoining us. Thank you for taking this journey with us. We're here, and without further ado, we can go ahead and jump into it because we're going to conclude everything that has been going on with Jackie and let you know exactly how this is going to close out. We're going to start out with what y'all think we're going to start out with. What y'all think Jackie's going to be doing now? What's the story going to begin with? In April of 1967, Jackie got in trouble again for messing with them white women way down in Columbia, South Carolina. He and his drummer Jimmy Smith were arrested and charged with immoral and disorderly conduct. The two men were with two white women, aged 25 and 24. So it wasn't a question of them messing with underage girls. Of course, the true issue was that black men were messing with white women. The men were put in jail. They each had bonds of $200. They had to pay their way out of that situation. However, the true damage from this situation could have come on Jackie's career, as backlash from it could have meant no radio airplay for his songs, or that some promoters might not be so anxious to book him. To combat this, Nat Tarnopol came up with the idea that Wilson should marry his longtime girlfriend, side piece, Harleen Harris. To that end, a wedding was hastily arranged, and they got married in June of 1967. In a twist of fate, the man, Nat Tarnopol, who decided Wilson and Harris should get married, would then be the same man who would drive a major wedge, a serious wedge, into their relationship. Soon after Jackie and Harleen got married, Jackie moved out of their penthouse apartment that he shared with his new wife. Why did this happen? The prevailing rumor about this is that Jackie caught Tarnopol in bed with Harleen. Now, is that the pot calling the kettle black, or... Because while Wilson felt free to have as many affairs as he wanted, finding his former manager and friend in bed with his wife truly affected him. So much so that Wilson moved out. He took his clothes. He took his record player. He even took his comic book collection. So you know he was serious. At this point, Jackie was 34 years old, and sadly, his best years were already behind him. After he moved out, he became very depressed, and he drank around the clock, smoked weed, and sat in his room all day. He always used to eat a lot, but he used to burn off his calories because he was doing so many performances. But at this point, he wasn't as popular as he was previously, and the inactivity caused him to become overweight. Jackie and Harleen never really reconciled, so on March 22nd, 1969, Jackie and Harleen agreed to separate. Pay attention to the words that I use there, because that phrasing is going to come up again, and it's going to be very vital to something that happens later. After this, Jackie began having problems when he went to New York. Harleen was after him for unpaid alimony. He was not only not paying Frida, apparently now he also wasn't paying Harleen. Harleen always knew when Jackie would be in town because his old buddy Nat Tarnopol would always tell her what Jackie was up to. And as a result, Jackie would keep getting arrested, keep having to bond himself out. To avoid going through all this all the time, he began recording in Chicago. Tragedy struck Jackie's family in 1970 when Jack Jr. was unalived in a dispute with a neighbor. He was only 16 years old. Earlier we mentioned the fact that he was like his father in that he began to use illicit drugs. Another way he was just like his father is he started having sex when he was young. His girlfriend, who was 15 at the time, had his baby back when Jack Jr. was 14. When Jackie's father had passed away back in 1953, Jackie refused to attend the funeral. He would do the same thing when his son passed away. Jackie refused to attend because he said that he brought his son into the world, so he didn't want to see him put into the ground. So instead of him going, he had a photographer from Jet magazine take pictures of Jack Jr. in the casket for him. Yeah, that's very strange. Jackie became very depressed after his son was unalived, and all the things that we talked about that he was doing before, as if those things could ramp up even more, they did. How would he bounce back from that? Jackie met a woman named Lynn Crochet. Lynn was a white woman who was a cocktail waitress at a black nightclub in Louisiana. When Jackie met her, she was sleeping with the club owner at the time. The club owner, being the jealous sort, when he saw how good she was getting along with Jackie, he fired her. In order to help her land on her feet, Jackie fired his road manager, and he hired Lynn in his former road manager's place. Early the next year in 1971, Jackie and Lynn were married in a civil ceremony at the Whiskey A Go-Go nightclub in Los Angeles. The marriage was never formally registered. Most likely, that was because to do so would have left Wilson open to criminal charges of bigamy. So remember earlier, I said that he and Harleen separated. I didn't say they were divorced. So he's still married at the time. Obviously, he knows this. I don't know what happened. Pay attention to these events because this is going to come up again later. Now, what happens when Jackie is in the presence of a woman? Inevitably, this woman becomes pregnant. Lynn was no different. In 1972, they would have a son together. And this son was named after Jackie's favorite comic book hero. It was Thor. So the boy was named Thor Wilson. Meanwhile, in his musical career, Jackie had come up with a formula, let's say, to keep more of the money that he got for his performances in his pocket. This is what he was doing. Sometimes he would book to do 3 shows. However, he'd really do 5 shows. The reason he would do that is because the 3 shows were known to the mob. So they were looking for 3 shows worth of money. He would faithfully send them their cut. However, for the 2 shows that they didn't know about, all that money was his. Apparently, his scheme to keep this money in his pocket did not extend to Frida. He wasn't paying her what he was supposed to, because eventually she lost her home, and she had to move into the YWCA as a result. But with his new family, Jackie kept the home fires burning, as he gonna do, because in August of 1975, he would have another child with Lynn, and this baby was named Lenny, which was Cherokee for little one. In the month following his child's birth, according to Lynn's sister, Linda Cannon, in early September of 1975, Jackie was seen by a physician. The doctor gave him a physical, and he proclaimed Jackie to be in the best shape of his life. That's important, because later on in that same month, on September 29th, 1975, all the things that Jackie had been through, the bad things, were pale in comparison to what was about to happen to him now. On the night of September 29th, 1975, Jackie performed at the Latin Casino in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, as a part of Dick Clark's Rock and Roll Review. Then, while performing, shockingly and without warning, he collapsed on stage. He fell backwards. He hit his head on the stage. The first person to reach him was Cornell Gunter, who was a member of the group The Coasters and was providing backup vocals for Jackie at the time. Gunter noticed that Jackie wasn't breathing and gave him CPR. Afterwards, Jackie was rushed to a nearby hospital, where he fell into a coma. Jackie was in a coma for nearly 4 months, but when he awoke, he wasn't able to communicate, could not speak. Now let's go back a little bit to right before Jackie collapsed on stage. Not long before that happened, Nat Tarnopol and other Brunswick record executives were indicted for tax evasion and mail fraud in relation to a bribery and payola scandal. Among the charges was the contention that Brunswick record artists, like Jackie, had been cheated out of their royalties. It was estimated that Jackie was owed at least $1 million in royalties as a result of these findings. The indictment stated that the record label had made hundreds of thousands of shipments of records that were never put on the books, which meant the artist never received proper royalties for those records. Brunswick was not only cheating Jackie on the front end by accumulating debt in his name, but they also cheated him on the back end by withholding money that he could have used to repay those debts. Some rumors suggest perhaps some combination of Nat Tarnopol, Brunswick Records, and other entities did something to Jackie to facilitate what happened to him on stage that night. Their reasons for perhaps doing something like that are obvious. They wanted to avoid him testifying against them. They wanted to avoid having to pay him royalties. So what do y'all think the truth was? Do you think the truth is that a man that only 2 weeks prior to collapsing with a heart attack had been given a clean bill of health and all of a sudden was deathly ill? Or do you believe that a company looking to avoid being forced to pay millions to artists that they cheated decided that eliminating Jackie was the best way to get out of that situation? Something to think about. Now, back to Jackie after he awoke from his coma following his heart attack. Sadly, Jackie was given the bad news that his mother had passed away while he was in his coma. Eliza May died on October the 15th, 1975, and she was 71 years old. In relation to Jackie's health, it was determined that not only had he suffered a heart attack, he had also suffered brain damage, most likely from hitting his head when he collapsed on stage. While Jackie was trying to recover from everything that had happened to him, there was a lot of litigation between Lynn Crochet and Harlene Harris and a woman named Joyce McCrae. We have not spoken about Joyce McCrae at this point, but we'll get into her in just a moment. Lynn, who was living with Jackie at the time of his collapse, argued that she was his wife. Remember, they had a civil union ceremony, but the paperwork could not be filed. Whatever the case, Lynn believed that she was his true and proper wife. Harlene argued that she and Jackie were only separated, but never divorced. And again, remember, it said that Harlene and Jackie separated, never said that they divorced. So she was not lying. That was an accurate statement. So wait a minute though. We know who Lynn is. That was the white girl who had the son by Jackie named Thor. We know who Harlene is. But who up is Joyce McCrae? McCrae had no relation to Jackie whatsoever. However, she claimed to be a friend of his and talked about how Jackie had been there for her when she needed someone to be a friend to her. Joyce felt that Jackie was being neglected by everyone and that he was being treated like a thing instead of a human being. She interjected herself into this situation and was seemingly selfless in her desire to help Jackie, even though she had no legal rights as a wife or guardian. Her love for him drove her to relocate from Chicago to Philadelphia to help him rehab. "I've made a commitment to give Jackie my world," McCrae would say. She even moved into an apartment near the center where Jackie was housed to be near him. Meanwhile, she had left her own 11-year-old daughter in someone else's care back in Chicago. She was visiting Jackie twice a day, humming to him, playing some of his hit songs. She also washed him. She fed him. She spent over $15,000 out of her own pocket on speech therapy for Jackie after his court-appointed guardian had his speech therapy canceled. On the other hand, Joyce also took pictures of her and Jackie when she was visiting him and then sold those pictures to a national magazine. And I know what some of y'all out there are thinking, and yes is the answer to your unasked question. She was a white girl. While all this was happening, on one occasion, Wilson's inability to speak really hurt him. An electric lamp was set up by the hospital staff and focused on Jackie's butt in an attempt to dry out bed sores. However, the lamp was left unattended. The lamp then tipped over and caused severe burns on Jackie. The staff only learned of what was going on after they smelled the burning flesh that the lamp caused. At this time, Jackie's care cost about $3,000 a month, which is about $16,000, give or take, in today's dollars. Rumor has it that Elvis Presley paid for some of Jackie's medical care. Earlier we mentioned that Nat Tarnopol and Brunswick Record executives were brought up on charges. Nat Tarnopol was convicted of those charges in 1976. However, the Federal Appeals Court overturned that conviction a mere 18 months later. Now check this out. In a strange twist, despite that conviction being overturned, judges made a point of stating that they believed there was enough evidence for a jury to find that Brunswick did indeed cheat their artists out of their royalties. And yet another strange twist, another trial never took place. Even if one had taken place, Jackie wouldn't have been able to testify because he was semi-comatose. He had no way of communicating his thoughts, his feelings, or any of those things. Beginning in May of 1977, Jackie was placed in a retirement center in Mount Holly, New Jersey. Also during this time, on October the 23rd of 1977, Jackie's daughter Sandy died in her sleep. Sandy was only 24 years old. And remember, this is the daughter that got married to the guy that Jackie intended for his other daughter. In 1978, all the litigation that had been going on between Lynn, Harlene Harris, and Joyce came to an end. The courts decided that Harlene Harris, since she and Jackie had never legally divorced, was the true guardian/executor for Jackie. That meant that Harlene now had control of everything, and she vetted everybody who tried to visit Jackie. This meant that Joyce McCrae was out of the situation for good. People criticized Harlene, feeling that she was only involved because she wanted to get whatever she could out of Jackie's estate. Harlene's position was that she only wanted to be able to allow John, the son she shared with Jackie, to visit his father. We'll jump ahead now a few years to 1984. The retirement center where Jackie was staying decided to move him to Burlington County Memorial Hospital because he wasn't taking proper nourishment. Less than 2 weeks after that, on January 21st, Jackie Wilson died. This was nearly 8 years after he had collapsed on stage. Sadly, Wilson didn't even have a headstone on his grave when he passed. In fact, it was left unmarked, except for his gravesite number. Blame was placed on both Harlene Harris and on Jackie's half-sister Joyce for allowing that sad situation to pass. It was not until 3 years later for that travesty to be corrected. Orlando DJ Jack the Rapper Gibson started a fundraiser to purchase a mausoleum for Jackie. It took donations from fans and whoever wanted to contribute to get this done. Both Jackie and his mother's bodies were exhumed and placed together in the mausoleum. Epitaph read, "No more lonely teardrops." Jackie died up to his eyeballs in debt. He died owing the IRS over $230,000. When he passed, despite having been a star for over 20 years, Brunswick Records still insisted that he owed them over $100,000. At his height, Jackie Wilson seemed to live a charmed life. He had all the women a man could want, and then some. He was considered by many to be the greatest live entertainer they had ever seen, and he possessed singing talent beyond any that most people had ever seen. Additionally, even after being cheated out of potential millions, he still earned enough money to live like a king. Sadly, his great heights were followed by years of terrible lows. After collapsing on stage doing what he loved, a man who made a living using his voice was rendered mute for the final 8 years of his life. During that time, his entire existence was based upon having others do for him. 3 of his children with his wife Frida preceded him in death. He died owing the IRS and his employer hundreds of thousands of dollars. And after such a great and celebrated life, he was buried without a headstone. like a poor man, like a pauper. A sad ending for one of the greatest entertainers and singer the world has ever known. That's it. Thank you for joining us on this 6-part journey into the strange, wild, unpredictable, curious life of Jackie Wilson. We hope you enjoyed it, and we look forward to you joining us in more videos. We got some other ideas for some great stories that we hope you guys will like, but we hope you're looking forward to hearing what we have to say. Please like and subscribe, hit that bell so you can be notified of new content, and be sure to come back to visit us and check out some of our past videos. We think you'll like them, and we think that you will enjoy sharing that content with others. Thanks again for watching and listening, and see you soon.